My name's Phynea Maher. I'm a social support worker, so I do a lot of practical welfare work with our patients and clients. So that's basically doing a lot of banking and shopping, Centrelink forms, housing forms, and just general taking care of them when they're in town, so when they come in from communities. My mob, I'm a Western Arrernte woman, so from Hermannsburg, my mum's side of the family. My father's from Western Australia, so he's a Yamaji, Geraldton, WA. So yeah, Dad's from over there, but grew up all my life here in Alice Springs. Spent a lot of time out at Hermannsburg with my grandparents on holidays, and they lived on an outstation, which was about 10 k's out of Hermannsburg. So an outstation is just a block of land that's basically inherited through our grandparents, so generations and generations, so through our dreaming, our totems and all that. So it's just an area that they've been allocated from generations that we go out and live on. So they had couple of houses out there and had their own sort of blocks of land, and it was grandparents living in different areas from the Paraucha family group. So that's my family clan. So we spent a lot of time out there and just learning from our grandparents, from the basics right through to, so when we were kids they were just living in a tin house with no generator, so we learnt how to, they taught us everything basically. So hunting, you know, looking for bush tuckers, because they were so far out of town they didn't have any vehicles to get into Hermannsburg to do food shoppings. So it was bulk shopping on a certain month, and then we'd spend the whole month out there with them, and if the food pack ran out, the flour and all that, it was learning how to survive. So the survival skills kicked in, so family groups would actually literally take us and show us how to track animals and which bush tuckers to eat, go fishing, because we lived right next to the Fink River. So we did a lot of time in the Fink, swimming and fishing and stuff like that. A lot of kids, yeah. So we had 5-minute walks through sandhills. So everybody had their own separate living areas. So it was that sort of thing where you could go across and be with other kids and stuff. And they were basically our teachers, so teaching us how to speak in language, you know, fluently, and teaching us survival skills out in the bush. We lived with our grandparents who just had a tin shed, no floor, so it was a dirt floor, and no light, no generators, a long drop toilet, and just a candle. So Nana would just have a candle at night, and that would be our light, and just open fire cooking. Every meal was like that, so just learnt everything off them, and kept our language and culture and everything strong.
Why is the future?
Yeah, oh, very important. It's very important for somebody like myself. You know, I have a daughter, she's 17, so since she was a baby I've always spoken to in Arrernte. So that was very important, not only to myself but to my mother and just everybody in our family clan, because it's a very important thing, because it's basically telling us where we're from. So learning our dreamings and totems, and our family clan, the Paraucha family clan, is a very big family group out at Hermannsburg, and then you have your extended families through that. So it's just teaching us a lot of things, and it's very important, because if we don't teach our kids, then we lose that part of our culture and our identity, basically. So it's identifying. So working here, I work with a lot of Warlpiri, a lot of Pindabi and Luritja speakers. So with my skin group, which I'm a Nabananga, that links me in through our kinship system. So it's like when somebody here finds out who I am, or they'll track me, the first questions they'll ask me is who I am, what my skin name is, who my family group are, and where they're from, and then they'll connect into me. So they could be from, you know, from Kintor or Kirakura or Yundamu, and they'll link me through that way. So it's a very important identity that links us into one big family group. And our through our skin group, they'll link in and they'll say, oh, I'm your grandmother, or I'm your uncle, or So it's sort of that family connections, which is very important to dealing with a lot of remote community people. So a lot of our mob that are from distant communities, we're still family. So basically, I've worked with renal patients since 1999. I first started down at the renal unit as an ALO, an Aboriginal Liaison Officer. I worked there until 2005, and then I had a year off, and then I came across here to the Purple House, and I've been here ever since. But just that advocacy for our mob that have to come in from remote communities, a lot of them, you know, like finding out that they're sick, having to relocate into Alice Springs, and living away from all their family, everything that they know and love, and everything that they're a part of and obligated to culturally. They have to come into Alice Springs and sit in a unit on a machine to keep themselves going, to get healthy and better. It's a very important job because basically I'm the middle person that can interpret or link in, so that once they walk into a unit and they've got doctors and nurses and social workers, I'm the middle person. So my job is to, you know, like not only do practical welfare, which covers all those general things that we take for granted in our lives. When they're sick, they don't want to do their banking, they don't want to do their shopping, so I'm the one that will go out and do all that for them. I've had experience in, because I've worked for so long with so many patients, and you build up that rapport with them and a relationship. It goes beyond just being a patient and a social worker or a patient support worker or a liaison officer. It goes beyond that. So after years and years of working with them or being around them, you build up that relationship and you get to know them just as an individual person, and then you get to know their families that are with them, or the extended families that are out in communities. And I've had times where a patient that I've known for so long will come over to me and say, look, I'm really tired now. And that's just a little indication of that their time is coming up. So it's that way of them going, when they're ready to go into palliative. And a lot of times when the patient goes into palliative care, a lot of the family members, they don't really understand what's happening with them. So they're like asking doctors and nurses or the patient, the family member, is, you know, why do you want to stop going on the machine, or, you know, why don't you want to keep going for us? So it's that being in the middle of a meeting or in a room and going, look, you know, my job is to support the person, whatever decision the patient has made. And it could be the most hardest decisions, you know, like they've got grandchildren, they've got kids, but it's their choice. And I basically just support anything that the patient decides to do. And it's a very hard thing to be in a room full of extended family who are basically telling me that, you know, I should be on their side and encouraging the patient to keep going. So it's a very hard thing to do, but because of my language, you know, my cultural side, family links, it's a lot easier for them to understand where I'm coming from, because I'll speak in my language, and it's sort of like a universal language, so like how English is to us. You know, Western Aranda or Aranda is a very big, it's divided up into different, you know, you've got Eastern Aranda, Western Aranda, Central Aranda, so it's like a universal language. And a lot of our patients or mob that live in different communities or speak different languages and from different tribes, because they speak so many languages, they're able to either understand or speak back to me in that language. So it's a very important thing, you know, like very hard. When I first meet any Indigenous men, especially the elders or the leaders of their remote communities or their tribe, they're very strong tribal men. So they sit above everybody in their community or in their tribes. They hold all their obligations, so culturally in their custom laws, which is very, very important. For a woman to come along and try and sit down with an old man and basically tell them, it's like basically telling them what to do, which I can't do as a young woman. So it takes months and months of building up a relationship with them. A lot of times if I do meet an old man and I have to go and speak to him, there there are ways, like protocols, that I have to follow all the time. So if an old man's sitting down and I have to come and speak to him, I'll never make eye contact with him because he won't do that with me. So in his eyes, a young woman speaking to him about something that's important, I've got to build that up first. So I can't just walk up and say, you know, you need to go onto the machine because your kidneys are sick, because he will look at me and go, who are you? How dare you come over to me and speak to me, making direct eye contact with me? You don't have the right to do that. You've got to build that relationship up. And it could take me, sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes longer. So it's just working with them. And a lot of old men that are very, very strong in their tribes or their community is basically kneeling down in front of them, because they have to appear to be higher, sitting up higher than what I am, because that's the law. So they might be sitting up like how I am, and I'm sitting on the ground just to talk to them. But the eye contact isn't, you know, I'm not allowed to do that unless they, you know, allow me to do that. And it might take 3 months of all that, sort of no eye contact, not interrupting. When they speak, I can't interrupt them. It's sort of like you want to finish a sentence because you know where they're heading, but you can't do that because you've got to allow them to keep in control and take control of the situation, which is very, very important, because as a young woman, basically we don't have rights. We have to build those rights up, build that relationship up. And then maybe after 6 months, I might go and have a yarn with them and come through if they're in the purple house, and come over to them and they might grab my hand, or they might tap me on the back. So then I know, oh, I've progressed to the next level with that person. It's a part of the job, but it's also a part of living in Central Australia. So it's that extended family situation that we build with our kinship systems throughout all remote communities. And it's something that, in the end, I find so rewarding, because if I can build something like that up with an old man who's a leader and an elder and holds everything in customary laws and culture and obligations within his tribe, and I've progressed to a position with him that he's able to sit in the car with me and make eye contact and have a yarn and have a joke, well then that's a tick off my box, and I feel really, it's a very important role that I have to do. And a lot of times I'm in the street doing, you know, what I do on the weekends or in my general life, and I'll have people come over to me and introduce themselves. So to have somebody that I don't know that knows me, either through my skin name or my name, and let me know that the job that you're doing with my grandfather or my uncle or a brother is, you know, so rewarding, because you know you've actually progressed from just not only working with the patient but to a whole extended community, and it's a really great feeling to have that. Yeah. Like, well, the main thing, like what I do in my is it's learning how to show a lot of respect, which is a very hard thing to build. You can't sort of, it's like, if you want respect, you've got to give it, and it's something that you have to build constantly. It's every day, you know, evolving every day and learning every day. So even though I've worked with renal patients for so long, for so many years, I'm still learning. So I'm still learning different languages. So it's a very important thing, because, you know, like I have a lot of patients that are trying to teach me their language or their way of life or their, you know, their things that they do differently to what my mob do out at Hermannsburg. So I'm still learning. You know, it's a forever learning. So that respect, learning how to deal with everything, and following cultural laws and obligations is very important. You know, like I remember a few patients that have passed on, but I had to go out to a sorry camp, and a sorry camp is when somebody's passed away, a whole community of people are waiting for you in a certain area, and they all sit down together and they wait for family members or people that have worked with that person to come along and finish off, what we call is finishing off with them. So we do a shaking of hands, and a few times, like, to go in to a certain area and have a whole group of people waiting on you just to say sorry, and to thank you for what you've done, it's one of the most unbelievable feelings to ever get. To walk into an area with over 30, 40 people, and you sort of get frightened, and you're sort of worried of what might come out of this group. Whether, sometimes you think, have I done enough for that patient? As a woman, as a young woman, as a person, and then having to go to a group of 40 people and shake hands and tell them how sorry I am, and to have those people tell you how much they appreciate and love what you've done for this person, you can't buy that sort of feeling, like sending out things that, you just can't buy it. It's something that's very hard to build up, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of years of doing it, to get to that sort of point. It's interesting because I've done this role for so long, it sort of eliminates anything else that's happened in my life, or what I've sort of wanted to do when I was a young person, sort of thing, growing up at school and stuff. But I think in the end, there was a day when I remember just being so confused in regards to, I didn't understand why I had all this cultural and language skills, because it interferes a lot with what I have to do in our Western world. So it's a very hard thing to balance, like there's two worlds that I have to live in that collide all the time. So I don't live in town, I live 30 kilometres out of town on my little outstation block, and it's in the bush, it's very peaceful, and it's something that I enjoy doing and love being out there. But it's sort of that connection with your spirit, which is very important to us. But it's like two worlds colliding, and you have to find the right balances in it. So, like an example is we have a lot of family members who pass away, and there's a lot of sorry business, which it's hard because I'm obligated all the time to do that. So take time off work, go out and do whatever I have to do culturally. But then there's the catch-22 with work. I've got to be at work because that's what we do, they employ me, it's my job, they pay me. So it's trying to find those two balances, and I could never understand it until one day it was sort of like a thing that went off, a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's about me, how I've got to place everything in pieces all together in my world. So it's something that I still struggle with today. So it's that adjusting all the time to it, and trying to, but it's all I know, so it's something that I just, I find that this is why I'm on this earth for. It's God's plan.